just going to wait now. Alrighty. So we'll just get stuck straight into it. And I might just move a little bit closer now. So, can you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
I'm Amelia. Grew up in Rotorua, but live in Whangarei for the last 8 years. I work in retail.
And why have you chosen to share your story on the Let Me Speak campaign?
Because I want my story to help others to be able to tell their story and realise it's okay to tell people and that it shouldn't be ignored and that you can get justice.
And where does your story start?
It starts when I was 6 years old. So it started with the death of my father in 2001, which left my mother a single mother of 3 kids at the age of, I think, 27. As any grieving person does, they go into a cycle where they don't really know what they're doing, you know. And it was one night when we were in Tokoroa at my mum's brother's house, my uncle's house, and mum was getting on the piss with my uncle and his girlfriend at the time, the mother to his children he had at that time. And us kids were put down in the end room while they were partying marae style in one of the back rooms. And
how many kids?
So in the bedroom was my 2 older brothers, me, and my 3 cousins, 2 boys and 1 girl. And I remember falling asleep in between my 2 brothers, and then my 3 cousins were on the other side of us.
And you were 6?
Yeah, 6 years old. So my father died on the 22nd of March 2001, and this event happened on the 1st of June.
Wow.
So a couple of months after, or 3 months-ish. And all I remember is waking up and I had been moved from in between my brothers to the other side of them, with a man on top of me who was my uncle's girlfriend's brother. And
you don't remember being moved?
No, I stayed asleep while he moved me, and it was the weight of him on top of me that woke me up. He stripped off my clothes, my underwear, and I tried to scream out for help, and then he punched me in the head a few times and covered my mouth so that I couldn't be heard. And he proceeded to penetrate me.
Wow.
At one point, he made me suck his penis, and I couldn't, I felt like I couldn't object because he was punching me in the head and, you know, all that kind of stuff, being very abusive. It came to him being back on top of me again, penetrating me, and his sister opened the bedroom door and found him on top of me.
How old was she?
I would say she was in her late 20s. I'm not precise on that, but about then. He was 19, and I was 6, obviously. She told him to get off me and go to the mattress at the other end of the room and go to sleep, while I was absolutely bawling my eyes out, scrambling around the room and amongst all the clothes, trying to find my underwear and my pyjamas that had been taken off me.
Did any of the other kids wake up or anything?
No, not at this point. I wasn't aware. So it came to the next morning, and I remember sitting out in the lounge, and he was sitting in front of me about a metre away with his back to me. And to this day, I remember what he was wearing, what tattoos he has, all that kind of stuff. And I just remember being very vacant and quiet. And then after that, it was time to go back home to Rotorua. So me, Mum, and my 2 brothers jumped in the truck. We're on our way back, and then all of a sudden, my oldest brother says to my mum, "Mum, I've got something to tell you. I don't want to tell you because you'll go to prison, because you always said if someone hurts us, you'll hurt them, but I don't want you to go to prison." and then she was like, well, what is it? Tell me. Like, come on, tell me.
How old was your brother?
He would have been 11.
Yeah.
Because he was 11 when Dad passed, so yeah. And then he told Mum what had happened, that this man had done something to me. And then...
Did he know what exactly?
Yes, but he didn't. Well, yes, he had an idea, definitely.
Yeah.
And then Mum, by that time, had slammed on the brakes and pulled over, turned around to me in the back seat and said, like, is this true? Did this happen? And I was absolutely sobbing, you know. Said yes, and then we turned around, went back to my uncle's place, and that guy was no longer there. He had gone. My uncle, his girlfriend, and the girlfriend's mother were there. Mum went in and confronted them and, you know, essentially went off her rocker, whatever. And then after that, it's all a bit of a blur. Like, I don't have much memory in between when it came to going to court and, like, how my story came out and stuff with the rest of my family, because everyone was still grieving for my dad and stuff like that, and things were still being put in order, and my mum kept it a secret. Not intentionally, but I think it's because she was abused a lot when she was a child, so that never got dealt with, and I feel like she never knew how to deal with it. And having it happen to her daughter, I think she was just in complete, you know, shock, not knowing what to do. And then it came to one day my oldest female cousin got her period for the first time, and my nana, my father's mum, was talking to her saying, you know, now that you're a lady, you can't allow boys to do stuff to you because you could get pregnant. To which, you know, my oldest cousin was like, oh, well, what's that? And she said, sticking his penis in your vagina. We were camping in a tent at Waiotahi Beach near Pautiki at that time, and as soon as my nana said putting his penis in your vagina, I dropped down face down into my pillow in the tent and didn't move for a good 15 minutes while Nana was having this conversation with the other girls. It was at this time where my nana realised that something had happened. She had suspicions for a while because not only me but my brothers as well were very distant from her and would, like, clam up whenever she was around and stuff like that.
Why?
I'm not too certain why, but it could have been that we were scared to tell her and scared of what may happen. So I actually talked to my oldest brother the other day to get his side of the events, and he said from what he remembers, he woke up while it was happening and he remembers just seeing me frozen and what was being done to me, and like I was just vacant, not there, in shock kind of thing. And he said up until I talked to him the other day, he has always had guilt and a lot of anger, and that is because he felt like he didn't help and he could have. So I had to support him and put him at ease by telling him that there is nothing he could have done to help, because there was loud music playing, none of the adults would have heard us screaming for help, and this guy was punching me in the head and stuff, so who's to say he wouldn't have done the same thing to him, being an 11-year-old, you know? So I just reassured him that it's, you know, not his fault and he doesn't need to feel any guilt.
But just to think he's lived with it, you know,
Yeah.
like carried that
Carried it for so long, and he said that, you know, for ages he was smoking weed, all that kind of stuff, tried harsher drugs just to make it go away, but never actually found anything.
Never actually kind of had
We'd
that
never
combo.
talked about it until a week ago, and I was the first person he had talked about it to, other than the police.
Yeah.
Which was pretty crazy, really, but I'm glad it was me. And so anyway, after my nana had the suspicion and thought that stuff was going on, she had asked my auntie, so my father's sister, to sit me and my 2 female cousins down and kind of have the talk, but make it seem like it's not pointed at me, so that I felt comfortable. I actually talked about one of my female cousins, talked about it to her the other day, and she said what she recalls is us being sat on a couch and my auntie asking us individually, like, has any inappropriate things ever happened to you? They both said no, and then I said yes, to which they were told to leave the room so that my auntie could try and talk to me more, but I just didn't want to talk about it.
How come?
I think it was just the fear and trauma. I was an extremely quiet child after that. After I was raped. And then she informed my nana, and then we went to my uncle's place, which my mum met us there, and then my nana and auntie confronted my mum and asked if, it had happened and all this kind of stuff. A year and a half-ish, 2 years later, is when the court proceeds started to happen, when I was examined by doctors and tested for, like, AIDS and STDs and stuff like that.
And what's it like having to go through all of that type of thing? Absolutely
crazy. Like, it's weird, because at that time I would have been about 8 or 9. And I remember in the back of my mind, I always thought, it's been too long. I'm not, like, they're not going to find anything. They're not going to be able to pin it on him, because the length of time it had been since it happened. But luckily there was enough evidence that he did get sent away. The doctors said that my hymen wasn't broken, which is, was a big relief for my family. And then after the examinations, I remember going to the police interviews, which I was put in front of a camera and, like, told to say everything that I could in detail, with one other lady in the room, no support person, nothing. Like, they just wanted me, no one else.
So who really encouraged you to push forward and go through all of that to make sure that this person faces justice?
My nana, my father's mum, and my granddad. They were the most supportive. Like, without her, none of this would have happened. And I couldn't be more thankful that it did. I've just got a couple of statements I want to read out. A victim impact statement that my nana wrote on behalf of me, because I refused to write one. So I'm just going to skip past the names. This animal raped our Amelia, took from her her virginity and her innocence, a little girl's most personal and precious things. This was a 6-year-old little girl who only 4 to 6 months previously lost her rock of support when her father, my son, died suddenly. A huge double whammy was dealt with her. 2001 will not be remembered by this family for the Twin Towers USA disaster, but the year of our Amelia Candace's double tragedy. Also, unfortunately, this rape will certainly continue to affect my granddaughter for many years to come. How will she feel when her first boyfriend touches her intimately? We can only imagine the pain and despair that lie in store for Amelia. This animal turned our lovely, bouncy, happy granddaughter into a child that started to wet the bed, cried at anything, and became a sad and lonely child at school and home. She has suffered severe panic attacks because of this assault on her. She did not want to go to school following the incident that would have normally been an innocent coronation. She has also suffered disturbed sleep since this rape, waking throughout the night and waking very early, around 4 or 5 a.m. She became sensitive to any normal teasing. She reacts very quickly to any hint of criticism and becomes very tearful and moody over small matters. Amelia Candace goes into her shell when we have to discuss this matter. For example, for this victim impact statement, or if people discuss or she sees on television anything related to sex. In around September or October 2001, I became aware Amelia was wetting the bed and soiling herself. I now realise this was following the rape. Amelia has been subjected to internal examinations by doctors and having the blood tests to see if she has caught AIDS or any other sexually transmitted disease from this animal. No little girl should have to be subjected to any of what has happened to her. Amelia appeared to be very relieved after her evidential interview. I can only put this down to relief she felt being able to speak of this rape to the police, as she wants so desperately for this animal to be punished for what he had done to her. This little girl has to see justice is served. Only a maximum sentence is going to let her see both now and in the future that our society does not condone these type of actions by an adult male when he rapes and destroys both the innocence and a chance of a normal sexual relationship in the future for a 6-year-old girl. The long-term effects are still to be seen. The effect will continue well past any sentence that this animal is given. Unfortunately, Amelia Candace is not the only member of our family to be severely affected. Her older brother Jamie has also been traumatised by witnessing the despicable act. To a slightly lesser extent, her other brother, who was also in the room. The effect on all other members of Amelia's immediate family has also been horrendous. Amelia Candace had to wait a long time for counselling, and this has also had an impact on her behaviour. She does not want to talk about the episode in her life and found it extremely difficult to complete a victim impact statement, which is why I, as co-legal guardian, am completing this on her behalf. I asked Amelia, what has this man done to her? I will never forget the horrific, out-of-control sobbing that shook Amelia's little body for a very long period of time. This, coupled with the fact that she was unable to talk anymore about this horrific act until her evidential interview, shows how deeply traumatised she is by this rape. She has even gone to the extent of telling the family that she now wants to be called Amelia rather than Candace. For a girl of this age, this is an extraordinary length to go to try and remove the stigma of this rape. I ask, as Amelia Candace's grandmother, and on behalf of the rest of the family, that you please consider the full maximum sentence available to help ensure this animal gets justifiably punished for what he has done to our 6-year-old little girl. She will never forget, and this rape cannot be undone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's what my Nana wrote, so I'm so thankful to her. Can't explain it really. I've also got here a statement that I wrote to the parole board when he came up for parole when I was 14 years old. He should not be released out of jail. He should do his full time for what he done to me. It'll never match up to what he has done. No punishment that he will ever receive will make up for it. But he could at least serve his full term in prison. He can also be a danger, not only to me again, but other young ladies, and also my little cousins, which are his nieces and nephews. I do not want them or anyone to go through all the pain that he has caused me with his sickening act of being a sexual predator. I don't know how he can live with himself every day knowing he has done something so sick to me. I was about 6 years of age when he done this to me. For the last 7 years and the rest of my life, this will haunt me because he took my innocence. The alcohol that was involved at the time, saying he was intoxicated and raped me, does not excuse his disgusting behaviour. It made me feel threatened when I heard he was coming up for parole, because he may come and get me for telling on him. Or worse, he has affiliations and could send them to do his dirty work for him. I am 14 years of age and now living life quite happily, knowing that he is paying for his crime against me. I would be happier knowing he definitely wasn't coming out. If he did, I don't know what I would do. It's too stressful to even think about.
How does that make you feel reading that?
emotional. Brings up a lot of memories. But I'm glad I wrote it. I couldn't be happier, because we managed to keep him in there for about 4 more years, 4 sessions of parole, the yearly paroles he was coming up for. My grandparents flew down to where he was and approached the parole board themselves, and gave statements and stuff in person, and we managed to keep him in.
How long did that whole process go for? I mean, if this has happened, the same thing has happened, how long would that process go for before they're behind bars?
So, for my case, I think it took about a year for him to be put behind bars, with all the court proceedings, interviews, all that kind of stuff. Tracking him down was a really hard thing. But he was sentenced to 7 years, 2 months imprisonment for sexual intercourse with a 6-year-old girl.
It's just not even long enough.
I don't even know why it was considered sexual intercourse. It was rape. But yeah, he...
what were the immediate after effects? And are you still traumatised?
The immediate after effects, I was relieved that something had been done and that I knew he was paying for his crime. But for so long, I was such an angry person that always wore a mask. This is how my brother explains it, my oldest brother. He said, for so long, through your teenage years and stuff, you had a mask on and you're real hard, no one could penetrate you, nothing. You wouldn't let anyone in. So I had big walls up.
Did your armour pain?
Yeah, definitely. So then when I was about 16 is when I finally thought about it again, because I blocked it out for that many years. It was pretty much once he had been released from prison and I knew he was, that I had to think about it again and kind of come to terms with what had happened, think about it properly. I still never spoke to anyone about it. I didn't speak to any of my family about it up until 2 weeks ago.
Why so long?
I just felt like it was kind of something that my family didn't want to talk about, because it was such a horrific thing that happened in my life and in theirs, and it affected everyone. And I guess it's just the fact that I don't want to dwell on that, and I don't want anyone else to. I just think of the future, not the past. Yeah.
Are you still traumatised?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm still traumatised. I do still think back to it, but there's nothing in my life that happens that makes that event hold me back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say to anyone that is going through it?
To be strong and stand up for yourself. Don't let anyone get away with it. It's not okay, regardless of who it is, etc. Just be strong and get justice.
When did you become more sociable again?
That would have been when I was about 13. So, yeah, good few years before I,
And what was it like when you started to get into relationships? How was that like?
There were definitely things that I didn't want to do initially.
Like what?
Like giving a blowjob,
Oh, yeah.
Didn't want to do that because that would just...
Trigger.
Yeah, trigger.
Yeah.
But other than that, with relationships, I've always been really cautious. Obviously won't put myself out there if I'm not comfortable. That kind of thing, yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to share?
Just that he's currently in jail for still abusing women, which is where he deserves to be. And yeah, I'm hoping to raise awareness so that other people, and especially him, can't hurt anyone else.
Do you know how long he's locked up for?
5 years, 3 months. And so that he was sentenced in 2018.
And how does that make you feel when you hear that he gets out?
Shit, because he shouldn't be out. Yeah.
So just like, because something just popped in my head.
Yeah.
When you said before about the alcohol, so was that what he said in court, was that to try to justify his actions?
Yeah.
Was that he was under the influence?
Yeah, that was a considered fact, and he was also trying to plead not guilty to receive a lesser charge.
Lesser charge.
Yeah. But yeah.
So when you got him locked up, was it because it had been a couple of years,
Yeah.
from the moment that it happened to when you started to do the court proceedings?
Yeah, so it would have been about 3 or 4 years.
So the evidence that they used was your statements and your brother's? And that's what got him locked up?
My brother's, my mother's, my nana's, and I believe his sister had a part in it as well.
What about the sister?
Yeah. She didn't say anything for years. Didn't say anything. Claimed to not know anything until I spoke up and told, the police and stuff.
Did they bring her in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did she recall seeing it? And
Yeah, she, as much as I despise her, she helped put him away. Yeah.
There would have been that guilt there from her too, eh?
Yeah, definitely. And she picked on me for years and years after that.
Like what?
Oh, just like the classic bullying, treating me like shit.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
So these questions are just from people that are watching?
Yeah.
How do you think you'll be with your own children?
Really, really protective. Yeah. Wouldn't let them out of my sight, essentially. Wouldn't have them in any situation that would put them in danger.
Like parties?
Yeah. Definitely.
With all the children down in one room?
Yeah. 100%.
What is the most healing thing you've done for yourself?
Talking to my family about it. Definitely. Initially, before I knew I was going to do this interview and stuff, I thought, I'm good. I'm really healed, but talking to my family actually made me open my eyes and heal that little bit more that I needed to, but I wasn't aware that I needed to heal that little bit more. And I think it also healed me knowing I've healed my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're happy for you to be doing this? Absolutely.
100% supportive. They couldn't be more proud.
Was the counselling you received adequate and helpful?
So the counsellor that I had in Rotorua, I remember as a child not liking her at all because she was very rude and blunt. But I did find it helpful, and then I got to a certain point in my tunnel, I guess you'd call it, where I refused to go to counselling because I didn't want to talk about it anymore. And that was
shut off,
just shut off completely. Didn't want to talk to
anyone. Do you think that if
it.
you had have had a counsellor that was a little bit more understanding and not so rude, that maybe you wouldn't have shut yourself off?
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that I had to wait so long for a counsellor because there was none available.
That's what I was going to ask you. So what things could be put in place by the government and things like that could help people that were in your situation?
Just having more funding for, counselling to do with sexual abuse and stuff like that. It's incredibly crucial that people get counselling. There are people that think, counselling's not going to help, but it does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking to someone who doesn't know you and is not there to judge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, did you struggle with your self-worth?
Yes. Yeah, for many years I did. So pretty much right throughout school until, I would like to say, year 10 of high school, I was bullied. And then after that I became the bully because I was just sick of it. But for so many years I allowed it to be done to me. Yeah.
What do you think? So you became the bully because you were sick of it?
Yeah.
Not lashing out in that like Cynthia?
No, because I clammed up. I was just,
Yeah.
you know, that's how I dealt with it, like within myself, not any other way.
Yeah.
And then eventually I just had enough of being picked on and, yeah, lashed out.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
I'm happy to share my story.
Yeah.
Hopefully it helps some of you guys out there to tell yours.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.